You may have watched many videos in your life, wasted a lot of time, but today I am asking for just a few minutes of your time, because in this video I am going to show you something that you may never see the world around you the same way after knowing. Imagine a small clay tablet written 5,000 years ago, which is smaller than your hand, but inside that tablet there is something written, which is strangely consistent with the events of today's world. This is not just history, this is a warning of the future. And do you know what the most terrifying thing is? We may be living in that future now. Watch the video until the end, and be sure to write in the comments which country you are watching this video from. I want to see to which ends of the world this mystery reaches. In a museum vault, in a dusty, dark corner, there is a small clay tablet. Hundreds of people walk past that place every day. No one stops. No one takes a second look, because from the outside, it looks so ordinary. But those who have read its writing, they have never been the same again, because hidden inside that tablet is a story of cycles, a story of repetition, the story of the rise and fall of human civilization. In the 1950s, excavations were underway at an ancient site in the Middle East. Under the hot sand, amidst thousands of years-old ruins, a team was slowly removing the soil. They thought it would be an ordinary archaeological find, maybe an old accounting record or a list of crops, because those ancient civilizations usually wrote these things. But they were wrong. When a linguist started reading the tablet, he realized this was no ordinary writing. The language was different, more profound, almost like a ritual or secret message. A sentence written at the beginning of the tablet, 7 deaths and 7 births. This one line stopped the entire team, because they understood this was not a ledger, this was something else. Over the next few weeks, every sign on the tablet was analyzed. They compared it to the ancient language to see if it matched any known writing, but nothing matched. It was completely different. Finally, they realized this tablet was written about an idea called a cycle, a vast cycle that repeats itself about every 26,000 years. This is where things get weird, because according to modern science, the Earth's axis wobbles at a slow rate, and it takes time to complete a full cycle, about 25,920 years. It's called the precession of the equinoxes. But the question is, how did people know this 5,000 years ago? They didn't have telescopes, they didn't have satellites, they didn't have any advanced equipment, yet they knew this number. The tablet didn't stop at just talking about this cycle. It divided this cycle into 7 different stages. At the end of each stage, destruction, and then a new beginning. The first stage reads, a great flood, which covered the entire earth. Water came up from below. It came down from above. Cities were destroyed. People were lost. Only those survived, those who were already prepared. Now stop for a moment, because modern science says about 10,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, there was indeed a great flood on Earth. The sea level rose by several hundred feet. Entire coastal areas were submerged. Thousands of settlements were lost. Is this a coincidence, or did someone really know these events in advance? The second level says, fire will fall from the sky, mountains will burn, ash will cover the sun, the world will be in darkness for years, crops will fail, people will starve to death. What does science say? About 74,000 years ago, a huge volcanic eruption occurred, which changed the climate of the world. Humanity was almost extinct. The third level says, the earth will shake, the ground will crack, rivers will change their course, cities will disappear underground. Now the question is all this just a fantasy, or is it something that has happened over and over again, and we have just forgotten? The most terrifying part is yet to come, because the last part of the tablet says, we are now living in the 7th cycle. In this cycle, humans will bring up burning black stones from the depths of the earth. The air will be filled with smoke. The water will be poisoned. Forests will be cut down. Animals will become extinct. Think about it. Don't these match today's world? Factory smoke, polluted rivers, deforestation, climate change. Everything seems to match the language of that tablet. Now the real question? Is this a prophecy, or is it just a warning? Because if it's true, then we are now at that stage where the decline has begun. And the tablet says, this decline will not happen in a day. It will happen gradually, in such a way that we will not realize when everything has changed. This is not the end. The story takes a darker and more disturbing turn from here, because the seventh cycle of the ancient tablet, which at first seemed like a warning, actually lists some very specific signs, and these signs are described in such a way that when you look for similarities with the modern world, they become unusually clear. The tablet says that at the beginning of this cycle, people will consider themselves the rulers of the world. They will enter the depths of the sea, fly over the sky, and draw fire from the depth of the earth to strengthen themselves. But that power will eventually become the cause of their downfall. Now, if you look around, don't you see that we are walking exactly this path? We are drawing oil and gas from the depths of the earth, which in that ancient language is called burning black stones. We are burning them, and the sky is gradually becoming heavy with smoke. The air in the cities has become dangerous to breathe in many places. The rivers that were once the source of life are now in many cases filled with toxic waste. A river caught fire in 1969 simply because of chemical pollution. Was this incident just an accident? Was it, or is it, a real reflection of the words of that plaque? Have you ever wondered why so many animals on Earth are suddenly becoming extinct? Scientists say we are now in the midst of a mass extinction, where species are disappearing hundreds of times faster than normal. The plaque said that the huge animals of the sea will be killed until the water is empty. Does this not match the reality of today's overfishing? Another important issue is the change of seasons. The plaque says that the seasons will no longer be the same. Hotter than before, colder than before, strange weather changes. Is what we now know as climate change not the modern form of that description? New temperature records are being set every year. Ice is melting, sea levels are rising. But the most dangerous thing is that these changes are happening so slowly that we are starting to accept them as normal. The plaque specifically mentions this issue. It says that people will see these changes but will not pay attention. They will think everything is under control, until the change becomes so big that it is no longer possible to stop it. Here, an important question arises. Are we all ready? We have reached the stage. The plaque also says that towards the end of this seventh cycle, people will start fighting each other for resources. Water, food, and habitable land will become the most valuable resources. Now, in different parts of the world, there are conflicts over water, loss of agricultural land, increasing numbers of climate refugees. Could these be part of that prediction? Another scary thing is disease. The plaque says that new types of diseases will spread, which the human body has never seen before. These diseases will often be created as a result of human actions, such as environmental destruction, deforestation, and the destruction of wildlife habitats, which can lead to the spread of new viruses among people. Don't the events of recent years point us in that direction? But this is where the story gets deeper, because the plaque doesn't just talk about the problems, it also gives a timeline. It says that these changes will continue for 3 generations. The first generation will see the symptoms, the second generation will feel the decline, and the third generation will try to survive the new reality. If we take a generation to be an average of 25 to 30 years, then this whole process will take it will be completed in 75 to 90 years. Now, think for yourself. What changes have happened in the world in the last 50 years? The rapid growth of industrialization, the explosion of technology, the degradation of the environment. Are these not signs of the first generation? Then have we now entered the second stage, where the decline is gradually becoming visible? The most mysterious part of the tablet is the last lines, where it is said that the end of this cycle depends on humans. If humans understand these signs and change their behavior, then this cycle can take a new form, can be transformed into a sustainable future. But if they do not, then decline is inevitable, and the world that will remain after this will not be the same as before. Here, a deep question arises. Are we really learning, or are we making the same mistakes over and over again? When we look at history, we see that civilizations have risen and fallen repeatedly, but each time humans have started anew. So is this cycle really real, or is it just a warning written in a symbolic way? Whatever the case, it is difficult to ignore the similarities to the modern world. Now the question is, if all this is true, so what lies ahead, and do we still have a chance to change that future? The answers to these questions may not be easy, but one thing is clear. That little sliver of Earth is not just a sign of the past, it is a mirror in which we can see our present and possible future. In the next part, we will go deeper, see what the possible end of this cycle could be, and why some researchers believe that we are already moving towards that end. Do you really want to know where this end will end, or is there some truth that is better left unsaid? In this part of the story, we reach a point where the boundaries between reality and fantasy begin to blur, because the last part of that ancient tablet is not just a warning, but a moment of decision. It says that the end of the seventh cycle is not fixed, it depends on human behavior. And this is where it gets most terrifying, because it means that the future is not written in advance, but that we ourselves are creating that future every day, with every decision we make. The language of the tablet says that the Earth itself is a living system. It maintains a balance. When one force becomes too much, another force brings it under control. And if humans upset that balance, the Earth itself reacts to restore it. Now, if you think a little deeper, you will see how much this idea is consistent with modern science, what we today call the climate feedback loop, such as when the Earth absorbs more heat, which causes more ice to melt, or when forests are deforested, rainfall decreases, which causes more trees to die. All of this is a cycle, a feedback system, which once started tends to accelerate itself. The plaque describes this with the phrase, "The Earth will breathe heavier." Now the question is, have we already reached that point? Because today we are seeing the highest amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in hundreds of thousands of years. The oceans are becoming more acidic, coral reefs are being destroyed, but these changes are not happening suddenly. They are happening gradually, unnoticed before our eyes, just as the plaque says. Another thing mentioned that has surprised many researchers is that fire will rise from the blood of the Earth. This phrase has been a mystery for many years, but from a modern perspective, it could be a metaphor for fossil fuels, because oil and gas are essentially the remains of ancient life, which have been buried underground for millions of years. When we extract and burn them, we are actually releasing that ancient energy. But the plaque warns that the overuse of this energy will upset the balance. Here, an important question arises. Have we crossed that limit, or is there still time? The last part of the plaque says that when three signs appear together, it will be understood that the cycle has reached its end. The first is the unusual change in nature. The second is the increase in division and conflict between people. The third is the emergence of technology that has made human power equal to nature. Now judge for yourself. Are these three signs not visible in our current world? Technology has taken us to a place where we can change and even destroy our environment ourselves, but at the same time, we are becoming more divided. Conflicts are growing over countries, religions, ideologies, everything, and nature is also giving its own signals. Are rising temperatures, storms, droughts, floods, are these just isolated incidents or part of a larger picture? The plaque also sheds light on another strange concept, which is memory. It says that only those who remember will survive. But here, remembering doesn't just mean memorizing information. It means gaining experience. It means understanding the relationship with nature. In today's world, we have become so dependent on technology that we are forgetting our basic skills. If these systems suddenly collapse, how prepared are we? This question is simple. No, but very important. The last lines of the plaque are the most mysterious. They say, the end of the cycle or transformation. The difference between these two words is very important. The end means the end of everything, and transformation means change, the beginning of something new. Now the question is, which path will we choose? Because the plaque clearly says that this decision is in the hands of humans. One thing is clear here. This is not a specific prediction, but a pattern, a repetition that has happened over and over again in history. And now we are in another chapter of that pattern. But the difference this time is that we are aware. We know what is likely to happen. And that is perhaps our greatest opportunity. Because if we know in advance, we can prepare. We can change. But the problem is that people usually change only when they are forced to, when there is no other way. It is as if the tablet is warning us before it forces us. The question now is, will we heed that warning, or will we ignore it like all previous civilizations? Because history has shown us that those who ignore warnings do not survive, and those who learn start anew. The most important aspect of this story confronts you with the question: will you see all this as a mere coincidence, or will you consider it a possible reality? Because your answer will determine how you see your future. And in the next part, we will explore the most controversial and mysterious aspect of this story, a question that has divided researchers for many years. Where did this knowledge actually come from? Did the Sumerians really discover it themselves, or did they receive this knowledge from someone? And if so, who were they? The answer to this question may be stranger than you think. The deeper the story goes, the more uneasy it becomes, because now the question is no longer just what will happen, but where did this knowledge come from? This is the biggest mystery. The information written inside that small clay tablet coincides with modern scientific data only by coincidence. Discoveries, it's easy to guess, but when the description of each cycle, the type of each disaster, and even the time pattern strangely coincide with reality, then the matter is not so simple, because then it seems as if someone had observed and understood these patterns in advance and left them for the future. But who that someone really was, that's where the most controversial discussion begins. Because one name comes up again and again in ancient Sumerian texts: the Anunnaki, who are described as beings who came from the sky, who taught people agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, and writing. Now, mainstream history interprets this idea as a mythological symbol. They say that they are actually symbolic representations of the forces of nature. But the question is, if these are just symbols, how did the Sumerian civilization suddenly develop so quickly? Because history shows that most civilizations gradually build on previous cultures. But in the case of the Sumerians, everything appeared suddenly. Complex irrigation systems, advanced mathematics, accurate astronomy, and most importantly, a writing system, as if someone had handed them a complete package of knowledge. Now think for yourself, is this just a strange coincidence, or is there something behind it that we still don't fully understand? And here another possibility comes to the fore. If this knowledge did not come from an alien being, could it be the legacy of an ancient, advanced human civilization? A civilization that existed long before our current history and was destroyed by some disaster. Because we know that the geological processes of the Earth erase everything over time. Landslides, earthquakes, volcanoes, all of these can wipe out almost all traces of a civilization in a few thousand years. So is it possible that there were multiple advanced civilizations before us? Many dismiss the idea that there were civilizations that experienced these cycles, preserved their experiences, and that information somehow reached the Sumerians. But when we look at ancient cultures around the world, we see an uncanny similarity. Aboriginal stories in Australia tell of floods that occurred thousands of years ago. Some Aboriginal stories in America mention animals that have long since become extinct. All of these stories were passed down orally from generation to generation without any written records. So why couldn't a civilization like the Sumerians, who had a writing system, preserve a larger memory? Perhaps this tablet is not a prophecy, but a warning, a diary, where the experiences of previous cycles are recorded so that future people don't repeat those mistakes. But the most important thing here is that the last part of the plaque never explicitly says that everything will end, but rather it speaks of a possibility, of a chance to turn around. It says that those who understand, those who adapt, those who seize this opportunity will survive, and those who cannot change themselves will become another lost chapter in history. Now the question is, which group do we fall into? Are we the generation that will just ignore the signs? Or are we the generation that will understand and change themselves? Because no matter how mysterious this story is, it also has a real side. It is a reflection of our current world. It is a reflection of our decisions, and therein lies its real power. Its purpose is not to scare you, but to make you think. How do you see the world around you? Do you notice the changes? Do you experience those gradual changes, or do you take them for granted? Because history has taught us one thing: those who do not heed the warnings are ultimately surprised, and those who do are prepared. That little tablet of clay has survived for thousands of years for one reason only: to deliver the message. And now that message is before you.